Hello and welcome to a Shock the Fourth Wall! Our humble comic book review show gets a shocking overhaul that's functionally no different than normal, but I've got pumpkins out and a spookier theme song. God, I love branding so much! This year, we're gonna do something novel. Talk about the horror stuff during Halloween! Last year in December, we started our 3-year look at Evil Dead comics. We were kind of more focused on dealing with Moarte's shenanigans to really get into it more, but let's talk about how this series has fared in sequential art. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but the Evil Dead franchise has a ton of comics, especially over the last 20 years as the cult following for the movies really exploded. Dynamite Entertainment milked the franchise like no other from 2005 to 2015. Multiple ongoing series almost one after another, and a ton of miniseries. Like how he teamed up with Obama that one time, because everybody did in 2009. And that wasn't the only team up. Crossing over with Marvel Zombies, the previously reviewed Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash miniseries, and various other horror and fantasy properties that Ash found himself fighting alongside or against. But today we are not looking at any of those. We're going back to the earliest comics related to the Evil Dead, which ironically doesn't have the words Evil Dead in its title. Let's talk sequels. As far as I know, there is no comic adaptation of Evil Dead 2. So let's get that out of the way. Evil Dead 2's infamous quality is the question, is it a sequel or a remake? It's ambiguous what happened to Ash at the end of the Evil Dead. Just attacked by the Force in the woods? Did he survive and escape? Unknown. Evil Dead 2, however, can be seen as a remake then, because the plot of the Evil Dead is repeated in the first 7 minutes of the movie, just condensed a bit. Ash Williams brings his girlfriend Linda out to a cabin in the woods, discovers the Necronomicon, and a tape recorder made by an archaeologist studying the book, and the recordings of the guy repeating the words of the Necronomicon summon some sort of demonic force in the woods to attack the two. Linda is possessed and killed. Ash manages to make it to morning before he is attacked again by the Force. From there is where we are now in sequel territory. Ash is possessed by the Force like Linda and his friends were in the previous movie, but as the tagline of the film goes, this Force is dead by dawn, so it withdraws as the morning sun hits him. He's still stuck in the cabin, but is soon joined by the archaeologist's daughter, Annie, her boyfriend, and 2 hillbillies. During various shenanigans and murders and possessions, Ash is forced to cut off his own hand, replaces it with a chainsaw, and Annie is able to begin the ritual to dispel the evil. She's unable to completely finish it before she's killed, and a portal is opened, sucking Ash, his car, and the evil force into it, where Ash ends up back in medieval times. He slays a flying demon, the knights all claim he is a prophesized hero, and he laments the crappy weekend he is having. And that brings us to the finale of the Evil Dead trilogy, and consequently where we start having some of the copyright issues and where a lot of media concerning this franchise now draws from. Originally titled The Medieval Dead, due to a combination of the rights of Evil Dead going away and Universal Pictures wanting the film's title to be standalone and not be Evil Dead 3, the movie was named Army of Darkness. As I have mentioned in previous reviews, this has led to weird issues regarding the franchise's copyright. Most notably how when Space Ghost Productions got the rights to the comics, they were all labeled as Evil Dead 2, not even just Evil Dead. During Dynamite's time owning the franchise, it was just straight up called Army of Darkness for each of its comic runs, or using Ash's name instead. But rest assured, it is still referred to as the Evil Dead franchise. And in 1992, Dark Horse Comics did a 3-issue adaptation of Army of Darkness. Since we already covered a crappy adaptation of the original Evil Dead, let's dig into the Army of Darkness adaptation and see how they did with it.
Welcome to a Shock the Fourth Wall, where dead comics rise. Linkara's gonna bring you all a Halloween surprise. Monsters from scary stories and adjacent categories. If you step into his laboratory, you won't believe your eyes. Linkara, he is a man punch, or is he something else? Linkara, for the last few days he hasn't been himself. Linkara, brains, gore, skeletons and guts. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
Strangely, this thing is called the movie adaptation, even though it should be the other way around. It's a comic adaptation of the movie. You'd call it the movie adaptation if Army of Darkness was a comic first, but whatever. Well, okay, it kind of is. The comic came out in 1992, while the movie came out in 1993. But at the same time, the comic would not exist without the movie. It's based on the movie, and the descriptor for adaptation should be comic, and wow, I'm being really pedantic about this. Our scans come from a reprint trade made for its 30th anniversary, so no looking at the covers, other than to say I love the look of them. But they wasted a lot of space on them. We open with Ash in a pillory and chained to other prisoners, a medieval knight nearby holding a whip. My name is Ash, and I am a slave. Not my first career choice, but it's all I could get with this degree. Close as I can figure it, the year is 1300 AD, and I am being dragged to my death. But enough about me, how are you doing? Wasn't always like this. I had a real life. Once. Okay, admittedly, most of it was spent hitting on AI chatbots based on anime women, but still. He recaps the events of Evil Dead 2. It was here that I first set eyes upon that damn book. Warrior Cats messed me up something good, I tell ya. Bound in human flesh and inked in blood, the book contained bizarre burial rites, funerary incantations, and instructions for demon resurrection. So, any politician's book when they leave office. It was never meant for the world of the living, hence why it ended up in the discount bin. The art at times feels like a mixture of modified stills from the movie as well as original art. It works, it's just odd that they went that way, as if they were trying to cut corners to make sure the book made it at the same time as the movie coming out, but again, the comic was released first. Check out this one shot of Ash's head. He looks like the stretchy-faced guy in the X-Files intro. It got into my hand and it went bad. I lopped it off at the wrist. American healthcare in a nutshell. I read a passage in the book that was supposed to open a hole in time that would send the evil back. And Scotty laughed when I took that class in Ancient Sumerian. Who's laughing now? This still frame, Ash in the middle of a sneeze or Ash stepping on a Lego? You make the call. But yeah, it sent him back in time, and this is where we diverged from the end of Evil Dead 2. There, while knights were ready to kill Ash, the interruption of a demon and him blowing its head off with his shotgun got them all to exclaim that he was their prophesized hero. Here, there is no demon attack, so instead he's met by a king and his wizard advisor. Stand fast, hellhound! Whoa, just take it easy, chief. I don't know how I got here, and I'm not looking for any trouble. Don't threaten me, pal. I work in housewares! The wizard says that this is likely the one prophesized to help them stop the Deadites, the possessed demonic beings in the franchise. However, the king slices the sword on Ash. He bleeds as a man bleeds. The one written in the Necronomicon would not bleed.
There is logic in what he says.
So, what part of the evil Book of the Dead mentioned, oh, and by the way, he who comes from the sky won't bleed? Or is that only in the Septuagint Necronomicon? The king believes him to be one of the soldiers for Henry the Red, a rival duke and enemy of the king. When Ash fights back against them, they knock him out and take away his chainsaw and shotgun. He's taken back to a nearby castle where we meet Sheila, the sister of a knight who was slain by Henry's men. We also learn that our king is named Arthur. And yeah, I don't know if he was intended to be the King Arthur of legend, but if that's the case, they got their years wrong. Arthurian poetry and stories go back far earlier than the 1300 AD Ash says this is, possibly even to the 6th century depending on who you believe, with Geoffrey of Monmouth's narrative codifying bits of Arthurian legend in the early 1100s. The Sword and the Stone's first appearance in literature was in Robert de Boron's poem Merlin, which was in 1200. And if you thought maybe the wizard dude is Merlin, well, if he is, he's never called that, and the credits only refer to him as Wise Man. I'd say this is just the fault of Ash being an idiot, but it was Annie who told him the year, and I feel like given her expertise with this stuff that she'd get the year right. Anywho, Sheila, pissed at the news of her brother's passing, decides to focus her anger on Ash. She was broke up pretty bad. She was going to get some payback. She was going to dish it out to the closest available target. And since she was standing next to the king's horse, well, Army of Darkness is where Ash's personality is solidified for all future media. No longer the sweet, normal guy from the original Evil Dead, no longer the slightly goofy but focused man with a bit of snark in Evil Dead 2, he is now sarcastic, acerbic, and really kind of an asshole in almost all dialogue. Now, in his defense, he's been through a lot, especially if you count both Evil Dead movies as completely canon. It's natural that his patience for this bullcrap has completely run out. But at the same time, it can make him a bit of an insufferable jerk. He's not heartless and still shows his heroic qualities, but he'll more often than not speak down to everyone around him, sometimes for no good reason and just hurl insults and derision over anything. In Army of Darkness, it's mostly okay, especially seeing as this is intended more as an action comedy than the previous two movies, but in other spin-off media you can just get really, really sick of this obnoxious douchebag who doesn't know when to shut the hell up. Anyway, inside the castle is a covered pit in the ground, and among the prisoners with Ash is Duke Henry himself. I am Henry the Red, Duke of Shale, Lord of the Northlands, and leader of its people. You ain't leading but two things right now, pal. Jack and shit. Jack left town. Yeah, but Jack had saved up all those vacation days and they were going to expire. Arthur says that his beef with Duke Henry is over the Deadite situation, claiming that Henry is trying to wage war on them while his people are trying to hold off the undead invasion. Henry claims that it was Arthur who attacked first and he's dealing with the Deadites too. They open up the pit, and one thing the comic includes that the movie does not is a lot more narration. It was the smell that hit me first. The sticky, sweet stench of death. A load of it. Smelled like grape jelly and mustard. One of Henry's men is tossed inside, and there's apparently something down in the pit that causes a fountain of blood to gush up. Ash tries to deny he had anything to do with Henry, but Sheila tosses a rock at his head, and frankly this artwork makes it look like a friggin' killing blow, and he staggers into the pit, landing in knee-deep water. I wasn't up shit creek, I was knee-deep in it, and I had a feeling I wasn't alone. Well, that's nice, you have someone to talk to while you're up the creek. No, it's a naked deadite that I think I have to censor its boobs. Hard to say in a situation like this. It also might have boobs on its stomach. I'm not sure with how sickly it looks. The one in the movie looked decidedly more like a possessed, fully clothed person. Point is, Ash is able to beat the crap out of it, Arthur ordering crushing walls with spikes on Ash for surviving this. More Deadites emerge, and the wise man tosses down his chainsaw to him. In the movie, it's a gloriously over-the-top but heroic moment where it lands directly on his arm and locks in immediately. Here, he leapfrogs off of a Deadite, catches it with his good hand, then attaches it before going to town on them. They were vicious fighters. But I'm from a pretty violent civilization myself. Retail! He manages to wrap his belt around a chain moving the wall spikes and rides it up out of the pit. The narration helps explain why in the movie everyone is suddenly deferring to him and utterly shocked and scared, especially after he punches Arthur, which he doesn't do in the comic. The crowd backed away as I climbed up. I guess they'd never seen anything crawl out of there alive, and they weren't about to cross the first guy that did. Now the second guy, screw him, he's just a trend chaser at that point. Ash orders Henry and his men released for some reason, and Arthur is pissed that Ash is giving orders even if he is the prophesized hero. He pulls out a sword, and Ash blasts the sword into pieces with his sawed-off shotgun. Kind of odd when you think about it, since one of the reasons to saw the barrels off is to increase the pellet spread, meaning it shouldn't be quite that accurate a shot. This is my boomstick! It's a 12-gauge double-barreled Remington. S-Mart's top of the line. This baby was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Retails for about $199.95. Walnut stock, cobalt blue steel, and a hair trigger. As a result, I have accidentally shot like 8 people already with it. Feels like a design flaw, frankly. He demonstrates by shooting a Deadite that had somehow crawled up out of the pit. Did they open that back up again while he was talking? And the people proclaim that he truly is the Promised One, though Ash just wants to talk about how he can get back home. As evening fell, I was taken to the ruins of an ancient temple. There I waited while the wise men conferred as to my fate. We went to some ancient ruins instead of just inside the castle for this like in the movie because shut up. Sheila tries to apologize to Ash for her behavior, but Ash isn't really interested since she was an asshole to him earlier. The wizard comes out and explains that the only way to return Ash to his own time is via the Necronomicon. They need it to deal with the Deadite invasion, but the wizard explains that as the Promised One, only Ash can quest for it. In the movie, Ash just grumbles that he doesn't care about the book or their problems, just to be sent back home, but here he actually asks why the hell no one else can get it. Arthur explaining that several have tried, but none returned. Only you can enter the cemetery where the Necronomicon lies. Only you have the real ID on your driver's license. Ash is not too happy about this idea, but then an old lady nearby who had been making a stew or something suddenly finds himself transformed into a Deadite. She tries to do the old pretend you're dead until someone gets close enough so you can stab them trick, but we're 3 movies in and Ash knows this game, so they don't approach. Instead of just Ash shooting her a few times like in the movie, we see why we're in the ruins now. The Deadite knocks over a bunch of stone pillars, one of which threatens to squish Sheila. Like dominoes, they came tumbling down towards the girl. She was a write-off, Only an idiot would try to save her now. I've been called worse. But none more accurate. Unfortunately, a poor knight isn't as hot as Sheila and gets squished. The Deadite gets its legs smushed under a pillar, but it continues the attack. But she kept coming for my mail package. Okay, is it just me, or is that a weird word choice for Ash? Like, package is already slang for a dick, so adding mail to it feels redundant, and Ash seems like the kind of guy who would just say what it is, or a euphemism like my boomstick or something. Fortunately, Arthur is on hand to save Ash's dick by chopping off the demon's head. The Deadite swears that Ash will never return to his own time, so he practices his kickoff. We stood there for a long while, even after we lost sight of the thing. We could still hear its mocking laugh. None of us wanted to walk the distance to go kick it further down the road, so we all just stood awkwardly waiting for someone to volunteer. Ash swears to get the book, but he'd prefer to be a little more dexterous. The narration explains that he actually has an engineering degree, which helps explain this sequence, the montage from Evil Dead 2, and stuff that will happen later. As such, with that degree, he's able to join forces with a blacksmith to construct a prosthetic hand for himself out of a gauntlet. Probably over-explains things a bit, but it's an effective way of translating the montage, which ends with him crushing a metal goblet with the new hand. Groovy. And I actually wound this thing up too tight and I can't open it again. Well, guess I'm just gonna be punching things with this cup from now on. Sheila goes to see him and give him a new shirt she sewed, but Ash brushes her off. In the movie, when he suggests that he'll use the shirt as a horse blanket, she's more pissed and slaps him before he just randomly starts making out with her. Here, it's not really any better, as she's just sad about his insults, and then he grabs her to make out with her.
We like each other now, because...
She revealed to me intimate customs of her people, although I feel like the poetry slam did not need to be 3 hours long. I guess I taught her something about the 20th century. She took to the clown suit rather well, surprisingly. In her arms, I was content, but I didn't belong here. My world was one of indoor plumbing and traffic lights, fast food, and instant replay. Her primitive intellect could never grasp these mighty advances. Although weirdly, she understood Super Nintendo perfectly. Ash takes off in the morning for his quest in this almost Frazetta-esque splash page. Okay, I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. Weirdly, this adaptation has the opposite problem from the Evil Dead adaptation in terms of its tone. Army of Darkness isn't really a horror movie like its predecessors. It's an action comedy with dark fantasy elements. It has goofy Three Stooges-esque slapstick bits and is definitely the brightest in tone and presentation of, frankly, the entire franchise. It has horror-esque moments, but hilariously, the movie called Army of Darkness is the least dark of the films. However, the comic, made a year before the movie came out, seems to be under the impression that it's retaining the visual tone of the previous two movies. Because hey, even though Evil Dead 2 had more comedy to it, it was still a horror movie. Here, Ash's narration and dialogue, while not as completely sarcastic and jokey as the film, still is pretty flippant and light. Thus, we have this washed-out shot of Ash riding a horse, heavy shadows under his eyes, the horse leaping over distended trees as an almost gothic castle sits on a hill behind him, while his narration caption has him saying he started to tune out the wise man. The comic art thinks this story is moody and bleak, while Ash is joking about how the wizard is boring and a page ago he made out with a woman while saying, "Give me some sugar, baby." I mean, it's not ruining the story like it did for the Evil Dead adaptation, but it's just a weird disconnect. Anyway, the wizard's words. Only with the Necronomicon can I send you back to your time. When you remove it from the cemetery, recite these words. Klaatu, Verata, Nikto. Their primitive minds couldn't understand traffic lights, but they sure did love the day the earth stood still. The old guy kept yabbering at me. After a while, I just tuned him out. You know how you do that? Okay, start by imagining his head in the sky. Ash, you must go to the Dagobah system. This is still an Evil Dead movie, so Ash suddenly finds himself pursued by the unseen force of the woods. Only here, he accidentally hits his head on a tree branch and falls off, needing to run to an abandoned mill. The force from the woods seems to retreat after that, and he elects to stay for the night. However, Ash later thinks he sees someone else and runs at them, but it turns out he just ran into a mirror. It shatters into pieces all over the ground, and Ash returns to the fire he's building, not spotting that his tiny reflections don't move with him. Instead, they crawl out of the mirror shards. This is a sequence that definitely doesn't work with the darker artwork since, again, it's a slapstick comedy pain as Ash fights the tiny versions of himself and gets jabbed and burned and knocked around. Eventually, they tie him to the ground Gulliver's Travel style, and one of the little Ashes apparently has a vor fetish since he manages to leap down into Big Ash's throat and gets swallowed. Ash escapes the ropes, and the tiny Ashes are never seen again. You think they were still running around the 1300s for a while after this movie? Formed a colony of himself, or were hunted for sport or something? We skipped the bit where Ash tries to defeat his tiny doppelganger by drinking boiling hot water, instead going right to where the mini Ash is absorbed into his body and starts growing out of him, starting with an eye on his shoulder in a reference to the old 50s horror movie The Manster. I ran from the place shrieking for someone or something to help me, though I knew there was no escaping it. I would indeed have to find a way to invent glasses that fit all three eyes. As he proceeds, the eye grows into a full-on second body that emerges from him. I can feel all my bad parts being drawn away into this thing. All my nasty habits, my filthy desires. They were now the stuff of this anti-me. And that's why Ash never did anything bad, jerky, or rude in the rest of the movie or the TV series. And then there were two. When I moved, he moved. When I'd freeze, he'd anti-freeze. He was great for my pipes. This was another slapstick bit that the artist turned into more of an actual fight, as Ash asks what this duplicate is. I'm the bad Ash, and you're goody little two-shoes. Goody little two-shoes! I feel like the evils of the Necronomicon were expecting a very different sort of hero to show up to face them if they describe Ash as goody little two-shoes. But of course, Ash most certainly is not, as he grabs his shotgun, shoves it into Bad Ash's face, and blasts his mouth apart. Good. Bad. I'm the guy with a gun. Gun equals true neutral, I guess. As per the instructions laid out in the first two movies, the only way to permanently kill a deadite is to dismember them. And unlike his girlfriend, Ash has no reservations about chopping this copy to pieces, so he does so and buries him. Though I guess the Necronomicon's power is greater here, since while Bad Ash is down for the count, his head is still able to talk. You'll never retrieve the Necronomicon! Tell it to the worms. Movie's line was better.
Hey, what's that you got on your face?
Huh?
Ash sets off on his retrieved horse and arrives at the cemetery, but is greeted by something the wise man hadn't prepared him for. 3 Necronomicons all next to each other. What's kind of funny in hindsight is that while 2 of these are meant to be fake books, traps for anyone who tries to take the real one, Evil Dead Rise actually implies that there are, in fact, 3 Necronomicons. I don't know if they're ever going to follow up on that in the movies, but it would be a good way to tie the original series, the 2013 reboot, and Evil Dead Rise all into the same universe if that were the case. Though I doubt that'll happen. But yeah, as I said, 2 of the books are traps. Ash opens the first one, and it has some kind of black hole of the like inside of it that sucks him inside, before he's able to barely pull himself back out again. I was unstuck in matter. The book had taken me deep into the null zone, a place where the laws of physics, gravity and such were all funny talk. Ash Williams, finally able to use that master's degree in physics, I guess. The second book bites his hand, fortunately not possessing this hand like in the last movie, and attacks him like a bat. Ooh, Ash, this has happened to me a couple of times before. Either morph into the Green Ranger, or use a magic gun to kill it. In fact, I'm pretty sure your shotgun is magical by this point. Use that. The final book is the real deal, but time for the magic reference words. Unfortunately, Ash can't remember the last one, and in his defense, if they were this important, maybe they should have written it down for him instead of just relying on his memory. So he just kind of coughs out the last one and hopes that's enough. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that, so when he picks up the book, everything starts to shake. Dark forces emerging from the ground. Gravestones trembled and were thrust from the widening cracks in the earth. I heard angry screams yodeling up from dead throats. I had screwed up royal. I had awakened the evil dead. Klaatu Verata Whoopsie. Good job, Ash. Now we'll never get Gort to stop his rampage. That Ash's grave gets struck by lightning and his twisted body reassembles and reanimates. There's another slapstick sequence that gets condensed down here, instead just being a skeletal hand reaching into Ash's mouth. Why do these things keep wanting to go into Ash's throat? Ash rides off, but skeletons begin emerging from the cemetery. I screwed up good. Every dead guy and his brother was after me. An army of them. An army of darkness. The Evil Dead coming up too. The Evil Dead rise, if you will. How many Evil Dead, you ask? Evil Dead 2013. And man, I'll say this, the tone may be off from the movie's more lighthearted sequences, but goddamn, the art is definitely better than the Evil Dead adaptation. I mean, look at this shot of the skeletons coming up. This is so freaking cool. Ash soon returns to the castle, intent on not mentioning to the primitives who never even saw the inside of a high school that he had messed up. But of course, the wise man is like, did you say the words right? And Ash has to begrudgingly admit that he didn't quite get every tiny syllable correct. As the wise man explains, having messed this up, an army of the dead will rise and destroy them all. Ash is pissed, saying he fulfilled his end of the bargain and got them the book. And being honorable, they will agree to their end of the bargain, which makes Ash feel more than a little ashamed.
Oh, good. I was starting to feel like a real dick.
Sheila is dismayed that he'd leave her too. What are the things we've shared? What of all the sweet words you spoke in private? That's just what we call pillow talk, baby. That's all it was. I'm so glad all of Ash's negative aspects got siphoned away into Bad Ash. Clearly he's a better person now. Sheila runs off in tears, but no time to worry about that. Flying deadites suddenly attack the castle. After a long narration caption where Ash talks about a CD player he wants when he gets back home, we get this pleasant narration. You want to know why I just stood there? I was scared. I could feel my stomach seizing up on me, and it dumped a load without so much as a warning. Well, maybe that's why they call it the Dark Ages. Did Ash just poop his pants? And here's a weird editing mistake. Now, originally this came out as 3 issues before being collected in a trade, taking out the issue breaks and credits, so we moved into the final issue. And for some reason, this panel contains the credits, and it's the same color as Ash's narration captions. So it looks like Ash is suddenly thinking, written by Sam and Ivan Raimi, adapted from the original screenplay. Well, he's going to try to save Sheila from the Deadites. I don't know, maybe credits are just an intrusive thought for him that he drowns out with the snark? While Ash successfully kills one of the creatures, the other manages to fly off with Sheila. And goddamn, another glorious splash page. In this case, depicting the Deadites' lower half wrapping around Sheila in the air like a snake as it flies off. Sure, the background's a little on the empty side, but I'm willing to forgive that since they're in the air and the actual detailing work and photorealistic style really sells this. Now, here's the twist you probably didn't see coming. The artist of this book is named John Bolton, who is well known for his photorealistic artwork. And he also did the artwork on the 2008 Evil Dead adaptation, where I was a bit more critical of the artwork at points. I don't know, it might be a case of digital coloring techniques just really not meshing with his style, or maybe he got lazier, or his age was catching up to him so he couldn't do the same kind of work he did here. But Army of Darkness's artwork, while not matching the tone of the film, still looks so well done that I was shocked to realize that it was the same guy. Ash fails to catch up to the Deadite. I chased after it, but it was too fast. Hey, if I could run like the Flash, I would have had my own stinking comic book. And frankly, I don't see myself ever getting another comic book after all this. Scouts return to the castle to report that the army of the dead is 2 days' ride from the castle. Arthur wants them to run, but Ash gets everyone's attention to make a rousing, inspiring speech. Go ahead and run! Run home and cry to your mama! Just like you Brits did in WW1 and WW2. Yeah, that's right. Yanks like me pulled your scone-filled bellies out of the fire then, and I guess I'm gonna have to do it again, won't I?
Fuck off!
Putting aside the really offensive historical references there that these people naturally have no idea what he's talking about that were not in the movie, Arthur points out the more logical reason why staying and fighting won't work. They only have 50 men to fight an entire army. Ash says they'll get Henry the Red to join them, and somehow manages to inspire the people by saying that he's gonna stay and fight. And you know, Ash has proven to be so worthy of trust and respect and deference, what with how he created this very situation you find yourselves in. Sheila is brought to Bad Ash, who's now sporting some skeleton-themed armor. And for some reason, this is a 2-page spread? Whatever. He forces a kiss onto Sheila, and her nipples are exposed in one panel for some reason. In a changed bit from the movie, Ash goes himself to ask Henry for help, trying to point out that the army of the dead will come for him next if they fail. Meanwhile, Sheila has been transformed into a deadite herself. Ash narrating that they were going to need something more than just bows and arrows to stop something like this. We needed some of the basic 20th century American kill power. After all, this is America! Time for our quasi-montage. In this case, Ash spells it out for us in the narration. They recover the remains of his car from when it too was dragged back in time at the end of Evil Dead 2, and conveniently it has both a book about steam engines and a chemistry textbook. As such, he and the blacksmith retrofit his car to be steam-powered and the chemical formula for gunpowder for the wise men to make some improvised bombs. With that, they're able to launch exploding arrows and catapult barrages at the approaching army, forcing back the first wave of skeleton troops. Bad Ash orders his forces to march on, using sheer numbers, ladders, and battering rams to start getting inside. They're overrunning the walls! What now? I don't know. So maybe I wasn't ready for them. How could I have been ready for a second wave? How is Comic Ash dumber than Movie Ash? During the montage in the film, we see him training the non-soldiers in combat just for this scenario. Also, why didn't the king plan for anything beyond this? Ash runs off, Arthur proclaiming he was a fool to trust Ash. And you're right, you are a fool if you had no plans for if they managed to get inside. But then, that does beg the question of what exactly Ash planned to do with his steam-powered battle wagon that he unleashes on the invading Deadites that he then unveils if this wasn't for when they got inside. And indeed, the thing starts ripping apart skeletons. Until Ash sees Sheila, doing the old pretend I'm not demonically possessed anymore routine, and Ash hastily turns the car and the whole thing tumbles over and explodes like a Cybertruck after a leaf falls on it. Sheila resumes her Deadite form and they fight for a moment, but Ash soon turns his attention to his evil twin, who kills all the knights guarding the Necronomicon. Deadite Sheila attacks again and he's forced to toss her off the edge of the parapet. You found me beautiful once. Honey, you got real ugly. You know, traditional standards of beauty are BS, Ash. This is why your ex is dating your evil counterpart now. Ash manages to set Bad Ash on fire, which just burns away what's left of his flesh. Still, Ash has a metal hand, and this guy is, well...
This is a skeleton! This is bones! Shut your ass up!
He might have come from a place of 1,000 flames, but I grew up in Detroit. At school, you learn to throw a right cross before long division, and then drink Faygo over your fallen enemy. Still, he kicks Ash to the ground and grabs the Necronomicon, leaping down onto a catapult above Ash to gloat. But what a coinkydink! He landed on a catapult with a lit fuse. So Ash grabs a sword, slices off Bad Ash's hand, then launches the catapult out into the air to explode. With Bad Ash blown up and Henry's forces to mop up what was left, Sheila wakens from her deaditeness, and the two enemy lords now join together as friends. Soon, the wise men consult the Necronomicon and find the way to send Ash back, a potion that will let him sleep for 600 years. He needs to ingest a drop of it for each century. He says his goodbyes to everyone, including Sheila, and has himself sealed away in a cave for his safety. He drinks 4 drops, but then has a fleeting thought of staying, and thus incorrectly counts 3 more drops and falls asleep. He awakens with a big bushy beard several hundred years later. And so our comic ends with the original ending to Army of Darkness, where he emerges from the cave to witness a post-apocalyptic London, Ash realizing he slept too long. Despite the weird tonal disconnect, this comic is actually pretty good. With some caveats. First of all, I don't know if I'm in the minority on this, but I actually dislike the original ending to Army of Darkness. I think the theatrical ending fits the tone a lot better. Yes, Ash is supposed to be a put-upon hero who has to deal with setbacks and frustration and bad luck, but at the same time, Army of Darkness is so lighthearted and fun, giving him over-the-top heroic moments to contrast with the pain and suffering, especially after everything he put up with in just this last week from his perspective, that making him accidentally wake up in a post-apocalyptic hellscape just seems needlessly cruel and too unfair a fate. The theatrical ending, where it's revealed he's telling this whole story to a bored Ted Raimi before needing to fight off another Deadite, feels more in line with how the movie went. Ash may never be free of his war with the Deadites, but at least he gets some cool moments and a chance to make out with a hot lady. But hey, that's just how I see it. As for the comic itself, as I said, my main criticism is just how the art, while beautifully rendered, doesn't quite fit the mood they were going for with the finished movie. Dialogue is changed, of course, some jokes left out or different ones present, but ultimately, as an adaptation, it's pretty faithful to the plot and presents a version of the film that's a bit more horror-focused, but still retaining Ash's snark and prowess for fighting the forces of evil. Hell, it gives us a few more bits of character history for Ash than the movie did. His specific college education action and whatnot, since in the movie he came across as a bit more of a meathead. Not completely stupid, of course, but him building the metal arm and the battle wagon at the end seemed more like flukes than actually reflecting that he has legit engineering knowledge and education. I still prefer the movie, but kudos on managing a faithful yet different sort of adaptation in only 3 issues. Next time, either we continue on with an interesting little Evil Dead story, or it's the 17th anniversary with the Clone Saga. It all depends on how soon I can get stuff out. Schedule slippages are fun! No, they're not.
I'm sitting on my couch reviewing comics, the worst words that you will ever see. It's sad that comic books are for geeks, but they're not. They're for everybody. Linkara. If you doubt that I am a man, I am a man.
Good luck. Nimue, are you transmitting the message? Nimue?
Nimue's dead. They fried the main computer. I've hooked myself up to act as it in her place.
And everyone else?
Harvey's got Eliza on the Vigilant and they're waiting for us. 90's dude and Lixano are dead too. We have to go.
Come on! Come on! Is the message sent?
I'm teleporting it out now, but I have no idea if it'll actually reach them.
It's all we've got left, Poyo! There's nowhere we can run to! Poyo! Harvey, launch the Vigilant now! Don't wait for me! Cool! Cool! I feel like a frickin' rainbow! Okay, if I'm going down, I'm taking you bastards with me! Hello my friends, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications on new video releases. If you'd like to support future videos, you can check out my Patreon, buy merch from the store envy link in the description, or check out the t-shirts available from Teespring. Thanks for watching!